Well, that was fast, and fascinatingly, 3 days after the big Comic-Con presentation. Who announces a movie and yet announces the person who's directing it a few days later? Well, I would like to think that Feige wanted to shut down speculation that the Russo brothers would be back. They keep talking about it. He keeps getting asked about it. In fact, he flat said no, they would not be returning for either of these new Avengers movies when he was being interviewed backstage at Comic-Con. But I'm sure he could understand, as it has, that the speculation would continue and that the Russos would continue to campaign for that gig. And it's a huge blow to the Russos that they didn't get it. You know, they talk so much smack about Marvel and Star Wars, maybe they shouldn't have, when they were promoting the Gray Man, and maybe they shouldn't have talked about wanting to do Secret Wars, because if you don't get it, then it's embarrassing. But maybe they couldn't imagine a world where they wouldn't get it, interestingly enough. The Gray Man, you know, it is becoming a franchise for Netflix, so they got that going for them, but I think it's interesting that when that was announced today, they did not announce any actual viewing statistics. Usually with a big movie, they say, oh, it broke records, it's the most watched for the weekend ever, etc. First 24 hours, first 48 hours, and they didn't do that. So anyway, but the real reason I think that this is the way things went down is that it takes time to put a deal together. And then this is just more evidence that Phase 6 was supposed to be saved for D23 and probably would have been with a director deal in place, so it could have been part of the big announcement if it weren't for those pesky trademark leaks. So Feige had, you know, he was pressed to have to announce the movies. And now we're getting the directors very quickly. And I think it will be 2 directors. We'll talk about that more in a moment. But tick-tock, these huge movies need to get started now with pre-production for their upcoming 2025 release dates. These are huge undertakings. They have to be coordinated. They're a big job. And I'm glad that the MCU is taking it seriously and approaching it like a big job, because this seat of the pants stuff has not been fun. All right, so yes, Joss Whedon did 2 Avengers movies. The Russo brothers did 2 Avengers movies. And now Destin Daniel Cretton is doing 1. And that's impressive. And I don't think it's his fault that he's only doing 1. I think it's the release dates. So it was announced today that Destin Daniel Cretton will direct the first part of the new Avengers saga, The Kang Dynasty, hitting theaters May 2nd, 2025. Now, while the Russo brothers directed, you know, Joss Whedon directed 2 Avengers movies just because he did a good job with the first one, and then totally imploded on the second one, both personally and professionally. But the Russo brothers, of course, directed both Infinity Saga and Endgame because it was one story, and this is one story, basically. But those movies came out a year apart. Which allowed them to direct both movies. Secret Wars hits theaters just 6 months after the Kang Dynasty, though. Oh, it's an ambitious strategy. I'm excited, and I think it's good that you have such a strong director like Destin Daniel Cretton. But Secret Wars is November 5th, 2025. So it looks like it makes sense that that film will have a different director who should be announced soon, as these 2 movies are connected. They're basically the same movie and need to be made in tandem. So why not have the same director if all those things are, you know, the same? I mean, they're definitely going to be shot back to back and will utilize many of the same actors. But the thing is that actors aren't involved in post-production, you know, certainly not heavily. They'll come in and do some ADR, stuff like that. But directors need to be very hands-on in post, overseeing the visual effects, the editing, and then they have to do a lot of the promotional duties to get that film off the ground. You know, walk the red carpet, do all the interviews, go the global world tour. You can't do that with just 6 months between the 2 movies. So that's I think the main reason they need 2 directors. Also, I think it stands to reason these could be 2 very different movies, which is exciting. Secret Wars will be very action focused because, you know, it takes place probably on Battle World. So you want a director who has more action and fight choreography experience for that second film. Dreamlist, Chad Stahelski, David Leitch, right? Sam Hargrave, who did Extraction and did a lot of the a lot of the stunt work for the Avengers movies over the years. Isla Nayshuler, who did Nobody, which is involved with 87 North, which is Chad Stahelski and David Leitch's production company. I just call up Stahelski and Leitch and say, if neither one of you is available, who would you recommend? And could your company maybe get involved? That would be great. The problem with all those directors, though, I don't know how busy Isla Neishuler is, but good for Sam Hargrave. He even is kind of booked and busy. But, again, this is a film that needs to be started to work on now. And so commitments that directors have for the next year or so would have to be put off. Kevin Feige needs someone who is not only talented, but available. Now, Feige has already ruled out the Russo brothers, period. He said they're not coming back at all for either of these Avengers movies. And again, maybe they shouldn't have said such negative stuff about how Disney's handling themselves with Marvel and Star Wars these days. And maybe The Gray Man should have been a better movie. I think Kevin Feige also wants to have a feeling of going forward, not backward. And the Russo brothers had their time, and it was glorious. And now it's time for somebody else to shine. Also, Kevin Feige wants to make it clear that he is the magic sauce at Marvel, not the Russo brothers. And I don't blame him for that either. I mean, that's like business 101. So who might get the other film? Now, Feige, of course, likes to pick directors that he's already worked with, particularly for Avengers movies. So you could see someone like John Watts getting the nod, Ryan Coogler, who many of you are hoping for. Some of you expressed disappointment he didn't get Kang Dynasty. Don't worry, he could very likely get Secret Wars. And I would even love to see Kate Herron's name in the mix here. It's got to be someone who fans will feel good about and who has a lot of time on their hands to dedicate to a massive undertaking. I think, in a perfect world, if I had to pick one of these directors, a perfect world would be one of those Chad Stahelski, David Leitch directors. But out of this Marvel group, I would like personally actually go with John Watts. I think he's shown tremendous growth as a director lately. No Way Home had some really beautiful shots in it that didn't need to be that beautiful. So I appreciated John Watts going that far. And also, I just recently started The Old Man, and he directed the first 2 episodes for FX, and that's really sophisticated and adult. It made me feel very good about him as a director. But he's very, very busy, for Disney no less. He's doing a big Star Wars show it's filming right now, and then he's doing this big Apple film with George Clooney and Brad Pitt, I believe, that's like supposed to be super sexy and going to get a theatrical release. I mean, he was also supposed to do Fantastic Four, but I think he dropped it to do the Brad Pitt Clooney picture. I just don't think he's available, which is too bad. I think that the director of No Way Home would get people very excited at this point. But Ryan Coogler would get people very excited as well. And he's got nothing immediate planned after Black Panther 2. He is available. He has some commitments, but they're pending. None of them have gone into pre-production. And Kate Herron also has nothing going on right now, which makes it seem even odder that she walked away from Loki season 2. I mean, we'll see if Feige holds that against her or respects it. I mean, I feel bad. We really need female directors to step up, and we need them to be as aggressive as their male counterparts, business-wise. And Kate Herron's just so talented. I would love her to be a person to undertake this new movie. I mean, she introduced Kang, and I thought did a brilliant job. And there's a big Kang tease for Loki season 2, so you would think that Kang would be a big part of that upcoming season. There's going to be a lot of Jonathan Majors running around, as I recently tweeted. So you think that she would have gotten the Kang Dynasty gig, and maybe she wouldn't have if she hadn't walked off Loki season 2. It just goes to show you don't know the ramifications of the choice. Enough other people say no to you. Don't say no to yourself. I mean, I think that's a lesson everybody has to learn. And I mean, but you know what? Maybe Kate Herron's happy with it. Maybe she's happy with it. But I thought she did a wonderful job with Loki, and I wish she was a part of these discussions going forward for new gigs. The mouse rewards loyalty, talent that's all in, which might be partially why Destin Daniel Cretton got this gig. He has so much stuff that he's doing with Disney. He's currently he's over there on The Office all the time. They were like, want to do this? I think there are other reasons why he's also maybe getting this gig. But he's heavily involved in many roles in American-born Chinese for Disney Plus, which had a big presentation. Well, it was kind of like a media presentation. It really wasn't for fans just yet, but at Comic-Con, I saw a couple of pictures from that event. He has the Wonder Man series that he's doing as well, and then a Shang Chi sequel that is yet to be dated. And thankfully, while Shang Chi certainly had funny moments, very funny moments, a lot of them, Destin Daniel Cretton is not a comedy director, meaning that the Kang Dynasty will have gravitas. It will have the gravitas that we want it to have. I mean, just look at how well Destin Daniel Cretton handled the complex character of the Mandarin. That was incredible, and that makes him an exciting choice for this movie. Of all the Phase 4 movies that we've seen so far, in fact, according to Kevin Feige, we've seen all of them. He said Phase 4 is over. I don't know where Black Panther 2 is because he wasn't on its Phase 5 graphic, but it's not on his Phase 4 graphic. What? All right, so anyway, Black Panther 2 is like, stands alone and doesn't want to be part of any of these phases. I think Black Panther 2 is like, as long as we're not part of Phase 4, it's all good. But anyway, of all the Phase 4 movies, I think Shang Chi was the best constructed, assuming, of course, that Black Panther 2 is, again, not in that competition. But I think Shang Chi was very well made. No Way Home might have been flashier and bigger, but as I said, I felt it played more like an SNL sketch than an organic story. But Grace, didn't you just recommend John Watts for Secret Wars? That's because Secret Wars, I think, is probably going to be a very different type of movie than Kang Dynasty. I think Kang Dynasty will be more dramatic, more epic, whereas I think that Secret Wars is a little bit more gimmicky, a little bit more, let's see who's fighting who in this multiverse free-for-all on Battle World. That sounds like John Watts to me. Who cares if it plays like an SNL sketch? I thought, you can't argue with No Way Home. The thing almost made $2 billion without a release in China. So anyway, Shang-Chi to me, though, was a very well-constructed film that told a complete and satisfying story with real emotion, which is hard to do these days when you're comparing these stories to the longer Disney Plus shows. The movies, I think, are having a very hard time finding where they fit in. But Shang-Chi felt fantastic to me. Again, as I said, top tier Marvel. Almost like you're like, this is what Marvel is supposed to be, a shining example of what Marvel is supposed to be. So of course, whoever made that happen is very vital to the company. The bus fight scene, by the way, is one of the greatest MCU fights to date. It was incredible. So maybe Destin Daniel Cretton can do action. But I still believe they're going to have another director for Secret Wars. And there's going to be some action in Kang Dynasty. And Destin Daniel Cretton can obviously handle it. But I also think that he is an actor's director based on his work outside of Marvel. And that's great for Jonathan Majors, who of course will be starring as Kang in the Kang Dynasty. Multiple Kangs. I'm sure there'll be we're going to see different Kangs in different projects leading up to this movie, but there'll probably be multiple Kangs in this film by itself. And it's imperative that be done well and not too comedic. In fact, some fans complain that his introduction was too comedic. So I think that if you have a director like Destin Daniel Cretton, who's very good with actors, maybe that'll help fix that for this other scenario. As for other characters who might be involved, I think it's safe to say, I think that Shang-Chi and his world might clearly be in the mix because of Destin Daniel Cretton's involvement. Marvel Zombies is where we're going to see them next for sure, the animated show with Shang-Chi and Katie and a death dealer becoming like a package deal. So I think you're going to see them obviously factor into this story. And then I wouldn't be surprised if Captain Marvel was a big part of it. Why? Well, Brie Larson has made a lot of movies with Destin Daniel Cretton, and in fact, I would guess that she's the one who introduced him to Feige, or at least vouched for him once he became in the running. And then, remember the Shang-Chi tease in Ms. Marvel, right? And we were like, that never went anywhere, but maybe it will. And that the 10 Rings are calling out to an unknown location at the end credit scene of Shang-Chi. Captain Marvel was involved in that discussion, right? And then when it comes to Ms. Marvel, we know there are 2 bangles, which Carol is involved in because they switched places at the end of the episode. I told you, I think there's a very good chance that all 3 of them are involved with the switching places, Ms. Marvel, Captain Marvel, and Monica. And so the Marvels is all about the 2 bangles. So I think that is all this jewelry related somehow, and then somehow is it involved with Kang, or is it a key to defeating Kang? I think that this seems to be how it's coming together. And also, it's worth noting that in the Kang Dynasty comic, who was on that Avengers team? Wonder Man. Right? Was Destin Daniel Cretton already involved in these discussions, and they said, hey, why don't you just take on this movie? So I think that he is a very exciting choice, not only because of his talent and the work that he's done for Marvel so far, but the things that this possibly alludes to. And I think it's another thing to reassure us after an incredible Comic-Con presentation that the MCU is headed back in the right direction after a very rocky Phase 4. So what do you think of this choice? Who would you like to see direct Secret Wars? Share your thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.